Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?
Hey, it's me, Egbert. E-G-G-B-U-R-T. Check out my website at egbert.com. Now it's back to those two dudes who told me they would bring in big ratings. They better are their history. Here are Brad and John.
John, you're not going to believe this, but Egbert called me last night.
No way. Are you serious?
Oh, man.
Well, he is a night owl. He's definitely not up at 7:02 a.m.
You just heard the bump in. He essentially threatened us we don't perform. He told me last night that if we don't have a show that's just killer show, there's going to be a bloodbath today. I mean,
wait, it's the word of the week, Brad.
I said, as a matter of fact, he must have said it 10 times. He kept saying, Brad, just tell that John guy, if you guys don't have this killer show tomorrow, bloodbath at the radio station. Bloodbath.
He would be surprised to know when he listens to the show later that the word of the day, though, Brad, bloodbath is, to quote a pop song, so yesterday. The word of today is skeptical. And it appears in our number one headline for today, Brad.
Wow. Well, let's get right into it then, because let me give you your standard intro. John Combest, the guy who for 22 plus years has put together every single day a web page on his website which chronicles all the big stories around the state of Missouri, politically, governmental wise, and sometimes just sort of crazy, weird stuff that comes around. And we bring in a guy who is very well known for doing this kind of stuff, his countdowns at least, and he does his job quite well, if I don't say so myself.
And here they are.
Number 3.
In third place.
The field for Secretary of State just got a little thinner, Brad. Senate President Pro Tem Caleb Rowden announced that he indeed is not running for Secretary of State. He had a big to-do in Columbia back in November talking about how he's going to run for Secretary of State. And it was getting to be, frankly, a crowded field. Brad's favorite candidate, Valentina Gomez, is in the mix. State Senator Denny Hoskins from Warrensburg leads in terms of money raised and cash on hand. But Caleb Rowden said, no mas. Caleb wrote on Twitter, posted to Twitter yesterday. I assume he also posted to Facebook. I haven't checked Facebook. But he announced that he will not be running for Secretary of State this year, Brad. And the interesting thing about this is when filing came around on, I believe it was February 27th, filing kicked off in Jefferson City, Caleb didn't file. And, it's not unheard of for candidates to not file the first day. But also Caleb hadn't attended statewide Lincoln Days, which is a big deal for statewide candidates. He didn't even go to the Boone County Republican Lincoln Days. And then people were wondering, well, that's kind of strange. Why wouldn't he be here? It goes to show, just anecdotally, you always watch people's actions. Don't watch their words. People that talk about the fact that they're going to run a campaign, if they don't file and they don't show up to a Lincoln Days, watch their actions, not their words. So Caleb made it official. He had a nice post kind of summarizing his entrance into public life, prioritizing family and things like that over running for office. So that was pretty big news in Missouri political circles.
Well, you didn't see him on Facebook, but he called me last night, and I said, Caleb, why not running for Secretary of State? He says, I'm afraid the election's going to be a bloodbath. That's what he told me.
Everybody is, and most people want to stay in their homes. Can I mention something that's a little bit petty, Brad?
Go ahead. Our whole show's petty. What are you talking about?
Now, Caleb has had a storied career, and he beat a Democrat to get that seat. He beat a really strong Democrat, a guy named Stephen Weber, who will win the 2024 election. He's a Democrat. He'll be a member of the state Senate. Stephen Weber will. And Caleb has every right to write 1,000 words. Okay. And I actually, truly, I think Caleb should write an op-ed piece, probably, put it in Scott Fawn's publication, the Missouri Times. I think people would like to see Caleb's reflections on how politics has changed. And he included that in the tweet. But Caleb took Caleb's post to Twitter. He took 258 words, Brad, to get to the sentence that said he's not running for Secretary of State. Now, I know that if you're writing something for social media, and I have a little bit of experience in this over the last, couple years, when you're writing things for people to read, you really want them to get everything, right? You want them to digest everything, and you don't want to lead with the main fact, because then people might miss your tale about how you got involved or how you feel about things today. But how about here was my proposal, and I put this on Twitter last night, Brad. How about journalists do a public service, they do a 5-minute webinar, and they teach politicians the inverted pyramid? In other words, start with the most important thing, and then you can go into, here are the 33 factors that went into my decision. Again, I think Caleb has done great things, particularly for the Republican Party in Boone County, and Caleb should write a full op-ed about this and let everybody read it, digest it, reread it. But for Twitter, don't bury the lead, man. Just tell us you're not running, and then give us your origin story. We all want to hear how the superhero emerged from the muck, But just start with the main idea.
Do you want to hear my opinion of the whole thing?
I do.
I am tired of these people who will bow out of elected office and say, I want to spend more time with my kids and my family. Here's what I want to see. I want to see a guy say, I'm not running for re-election, or I'm not running for that next step on the ladder. Josh Hawley would say, I'm running because of the fact that I want to spend more time at the casino. I want to spend more time,
especially with March Madness, right? And they can't do it in Missouri.
Right. I want to spend more time at the bar drinking beer. I want to spend more time chasing women. Oh, honey, you didn't hear me say that, but no, I want to spend more time in Las Vegas because I just want to live on the Strip. But this stuff, once again, with their family, that's bogus.
Now, Brad, a couple months ago, we entered a new term into the lexicon. And for first-time listeners, what is it called when you use your spouse or children, whether you're a man or woman, when you use your family members as an excuse for doing something?
Well, John, here we go again. I'm not as wild about the term, but I know what it is. It's meat shield, right?
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that that's what Caleb is doing here, because, look, Caleb is a dedicated family man. To be, sarcasm aside, family is surely the most important thing for him, and I understand that. But too many people, not Caleb, but too many people will just throw their kids up as shields when people are like, dude, what are you doing? You said you were going to do X. Well, the wife wants me to do something else. My husband won't let me. Don't use your family as meat shields.
Well, I just think it's repetitive. I mean, I want some spice in there, I mean, he could come out and say, like for example, one of the guys in Jefferson City come out and say, I'm not going to run for re-election because while in Jefferson City, I found this hot barmaid at Madison's, and her and I are going to just tear the town up for the next 2 years, right?
She does the little Playboy dip. You remember the Playboy dip that they used to do with the Playboy clubs, Brad?
Yes.
Okay, that's another story, though.
Okay.
We're not going to bring Karen Carroll into this.
No.
Up a notch to number 2.
Hey, SA, I got in a big fight with my neighbor. I think he's going to the laundromat. Want to come with? Ooh, I'm going to beat this culo, SA.
An undocumented American, how should I say this? An undocumented man, which is how media reports have described him, how he was described by the St. Louis Post-Dispatch. An undocumented man, Brad, got a little stabby on Sunday in the heart of red country in O'Fallon, Missouri. And it turns out, now, Brad, I hope you're sitting down. Are you sitting down?
Yeah, I don't know about this one. Where in O'Fallon did it happen?
Hey, SA, if you take Highway K to 70, right by where the Circle Gay? It's right by the Circle Gay.
Yeah?
He got a little stabby with his neighbor. I guess that he had gotten in a dispute. Oh, by the way, the gentleman's name is Jose Eucebio Barrera Amaya. Amaya. And it turns out, Brad, now brace yourself. He is here illegally.
What?
Get out of town.
What?
I know. Stop the presses. It turns out that he came across. Now, Brad, you get one shot glory, baby. Where did he cross the border?
I would say Texas.
Brad has got it right. Eagle Pass, Texas, Brad. He came across in 2021. And here's the thing. He got a little stabby. And then the neighbor's brother, I guess, was there with him or had come up to the laundromat, something like that. So let me make sure I get his name right again. Yes, Jose, gosh, I mean, is that a cliche? Jose stabbed not only his neighbor, but then he stabbed his neighbor's brother. So police caught him. He's in custody now. And the most beautiful thing about this story is Channel 4 has a story. Channel 4, I should say, described him as a, quote, man who entered U.S. illegally. Not an illegal immigrant, Brad, but a man who entered the U.S. illegally. The Post-Dispatch headline, by the way, the headline reads, man charged with stabbing 2 people. You have to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You have to get 8 paragraphs down, 7 or 8 paragraphs down to find out that this is an illegal alien.
Okay, you and I have talked about this before, but why don't we just say he's a non-citizen? What, is that offensive to anybody if you just say?
Yes, because maybe he's a partial citizen. I mean, maybe he's here on the green card.
Well, but he's not.
But he's not. I don't know, Brad. I mean, I think you could say to say that a man who entered U.S. illegally, it's just jumping through so many linguistic hoops when you can just say, to your point, Brad, you could just say a non-citizen.
Or a border jumper. How about that? A border jumper.
Yeah. Now I'm sure. I mean, now, by the way, that's very ableist, Brad, because what if you came over in a wheelchair? You would not be jumping the border. You would be a border wheeler.
Well, yeah, we would accommodate for that. And if somebody crawled, they would be a border crawler. If somebody, did the hopscotch, they'd be the border hopscotcher.
Border hopscotch.
If somebody ran,
so that's our number 2 story, right in the heart of O'Fallon, Brad. Right in the heart of the Westplex.
And now we get down to the real reason we're here, because we want to find out the big story.
The number 1.
Supreme Court heard arguments that had been brought by the state of Missouri and the state of Louisiana about free speech and how the Biden administration looked to clamp down on people who dared to question COVID. Now, you can read the headlines about this. I have these up today. The really interesting thing is last night, Attorney General Andrew Bailey hosted what used to be called Twitter Spaces. Now they're X Spaces. You know who his co-host was, Brad?
The guy that did the stabbing in O'Fallon?
It was, hey, SA, I don't even have an X account.
No, it was Elon Musk.
Really?
Elon Musk co-hosted an X Spaces with Andrew Bailey, and I think the whole shebang lasted about 50 minutes. So disclosure, I haven't listened to the whole thing. I listened to the first few minutes. I mostly just went to grab the link to it. But really fascinating here. So we all know that Will Scharf is an attorney for Donald Trump. There's no better brand association, no better rub you can get among Missouri Republican primary voters than being a Trump attorney and being in a courtroom with Trump and in pictures with Trump. Number 2, I think, would be Elon Musk. Like, it's hard to think of another major public character with whom you could get a positive association if you're Andrew Bailey. So I thought it was fascinating. What's going to be really interesting about this is if you're the Bailey team, you have to fundraise off this. Yes, you're up there doing your official job as Missouri Attorney General and you're making the case about free speech and what have you. But at the same time, we're coming to the end of the fundraising quarter, Brad. So the fundraising quarter ends at the end of March, and then by April 15th, candidates have to talk about how much money they raised. If you're Bailey and you are not pulling every possible clip from this and trying to raise money off it, and in some back channel making a direct appeal to Elon Musk for how you can leverage this to get some money, then you're missing a huge opportunity here. But I thought it was fascinating that Bailey was able to get on the line. Whoever set that up deserves a raise or a bonus or whatever.
Love or hate Elon Musk, but he just doesn't have a filter. He just says what's on his mind, which
it's great. It's fantastic.
I find so refreshing, especially in the public where everybody is twisting things around and they're turning things into bloodbaths. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I do know that it's a bloodbath. I should also mention that Eric Schmidt was on Fox News talking a little bit about the case too, and so it's gotten a huge amount of attention.
Okay, those are your top 3. We have a little bit more time left. Can I give you something that I think is very problematic yesterday that came down, which I think to myself, this thing, it bothers me. And I know people are going to say, he's a Trumper, he's defending Trump. It's come out that the Trump attorneys have come out and said they cannot find a bonding company that will bond the essentially money that he has to come up with to essentially appeal the case, which I believe is like what, over $400 million?
Yeah, it's like $450 million, something like that.
It's almost $500 million. And if you know anything about bonding companies do things for various types of things. A lot of times in the construction business, for example, the reason you don't have big or small construction companies doing big projects is because typically they can't come up with the amount of money for a bond. And the bond essentially is there for, let's say a construction company wins a contract and they have to post a bond. The bond is there that if halfway through the project, the construction company decides, we're not going to be able to finish this profitably, we're out of here, and they just walk off the job, the bond company essentially comes in and pays off the rest of the construction. In other words, they will pay for that. In a bond, in a legal sense, it's to the point where it used to be that if you got thrown in jail, in order for you to get out, you either had to come up with the amount of cash or a bond. And typically, if you go to a bail bondsman, it's a percentage. You have to come up with 15 or 20% of the bond money. And then when you show up for court, that money is refunded, or the bail bondsman just keeps the money. But in this case, he technically, and I believe this is the thing, he can't move on to an appeal until he bonds the award that was given to the state of New York by the judge. Am I correct on that?
Yeah, I think so. And again, I'm an amateur looking at this story, but that's how I read the story too.
Well, so what they've done is, and the crazy thing about it is, usually the bond money is held, or whatever the award money is held, and it's held by the court system, for whatever happens in the appeal. And if the appeal is overturned, in other words, then the person gets their money back. If the appeal is not successful, then the person who was essentially harmed gets the money. And in this case, there is no one that is harmed. That's the whole crazy thing with the Trump case. There's no defendant. There's no plaintiff. There's no bank or no insurance companies that come forward and say, Mr. Trump, you defrauded us, and because of you, we lost $10 million.
So, but this is generally done just to punish Trump.
Well, once again, I will never understand this. And once again, I know that people are going to roll their eyes when I say, here's a guy who is not the underdog, but he's the underdog. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When you look at what's pitted again, hey, Brad, and we've joked about it multiple times this segment, but look at Bloodbath.
Tell me about it.
It's the most, and when you have Elon Musk weighing in on the fact that Bloodbath is a joke.
The sad part of this is, if you don't know the inside joke, he was referring to the fact that the Chinese are now putting car manufacturing plants in Mexico. And I'm a car nerd, so I've seen this a lot in the trades, in the public, and the press and stuff like that. The next wave of car dealers, or of car manufacturers, we had the wave with Kia and Hyundai, which were the South Koreans. The next wave is going to be the Chinese companies. And they're already apparently gearing up to build these in Mexico so they can get around the tariffs and the whole bit. And he was talking about the fact that you put him in an office, and that's not going to happen. The Chinese are not going to flood the market with their super cheap cars because he's going to put 100% tariff on each car. And then he talked about the fact something if you don't allow me to do this, I'm paraphrasing what he said, if you don't allow me to do this, there's going to be a bloodbath in America. He was talking about the car industry.
Of course he was. But all you need is one word, Brad.
Right. He wasn't talking about, he's going to put out the hit squad, is going to go after all the people that were rude to him, and let's say he didn't win the election. I'm going okay. And the crazy thing about this is these are quote unquote journalists who are using this quote out of context.
And they're doing it knowingly, Brad.
Well, yeah,
they're not doing it out of ignorance.
Well, of course, yesterday I heard the explanation of Joe Scarborough essentially saying it wasn't done out of context. That's exactly what he meant. That he meant that.
Well, they are mind readers. And also, by the way, real quick before we go, the word that the Missouri media has chosen about the Supreme Court case is skeptical, Brad. The Kansas City Star says Supreme Court seems skeptical, and State's Newsroom, who runs on Missouri Independent, said that the free speech case is met with skepticism. Do you feel skeptical? I'm skeptical. Let's say we're skeptical. We're all skeptical.
The whole thing's just sort of crazy. You know, I mean, it's just to the point where it just goes to show you how well, I'm not going to say it because we're over time anyway. Okay, we have to take a break. We will be right back.
Thanks for checking out the Brad and John Show podcast. This segment of the show is brought to you by John Combest's book, Stalking, Harassment, Internet Trolling, A Guide to Recovering and Rebuilding After Online Attacks. It's a great reference if you've ever been the unfortunate target of a social media attack. It's available on Amazon. Just search John Combest. That's C-O-M-B-E-S-T, John Combest, and the book will show up in your search results. Now it's time for another segment of the Brad and John Show. Can you handle it?